Welcome to Horsefly Chronicles Radio with Julia and Philip Siracusa. Sponsored by Carnation. Airing live on United Public Radio Network on 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. This show's opening has been produced, edited, and narrated by Gwen Luckett at gluckett.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Horsefly Chronicles Radio with myself, Julia Siracusa, and Philip Siracusa. We are broadcasting live from the United Public Radio Network on 105.3 FM and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. We're fully sponsored by Carnation, so we want to thank them for their sponsorship. We love them. You'll have to do a few things in order to participate in chat. Go to our YouTube page, UFO Paranormal Radio. Go to all of our Facebook stations, UFO Paranormal Network, UFO Undercover with Joe Montaldo. News on the flip side, Horsefly Chronicles Radio, SoundCloud, Podbean, Twitch, and all of those places where you could watch shows. So today, guys, we have another amazing guest to our show. So please welcome to the show, Tom Springer. He is a paranormal investigator and a radio host of Stuff I Never Learned from a School Book. Tom can be found Monday nights at 7 p.m. on Central Time, and you can find him on his Facebook page, Twitch, and YouTube. I'm not going to say too much about him because I really want him to introduce himself. So please let's welcome him to the show. Yay!
Welcome.
Hey, everyone. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for doing this collaboration with me. This will be interesting.
Yes, this is going to be our first. I'm excited. Something different.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
bunch of people popping up. I just want to say hi really quick. Hi, everybody. They can't see the messaging that I'm seeing right now, but hi. So
Yes, we got we got Stewart, Nicole, Stewart, Nicole, Jeanette.
I'll say the other one. Uilana Kuule.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Rosie.
Welcome.
Kathy, Peach State Paranormal. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Okay, so take us to the beginning of your story. How did you start in the paranormal? What took you here?
So I am a very late bloomer, was what I like to call it. I actually wasn't part of the paranormal, but I had friends who were, and they still are. But they were paranormal investigators, and they invited us to come along on a paranormal investigation just to kind of see what it was like and check it out and be like, all right, well, come see what we see, or come hear what we hear. And my wife and I both went, and it was fantastic. And one of the first things that happens when we were there is I watched an apparition, actually walk into a room. And my team had two different mediums on it as well. And I just started talking to this lady who walked into the room because she was talking to me. And they both kind of stopped and were like, who are you talking to? And I'm like, I'm talking to the lady right there, dressed like this and looking like this. And this is her name. And they were like, well, we can see her. How come you can't? I'm like, I don't know. And they went, how long have you been able to do this? And I wrote 10 seconds. So I mean, it was that fast is when my awakening happened. And it was very unique because it was an apparition. Apparently that's not common. I did not know that. Still kind of amazed by it. But then as things happened throughout the weekend and just over the next couple of weeks, different abilities kept popping up. All of a sudden I could, so now I'm basically more of a psychic and a medium. I can speak, see, and hear elementals, just like I'm speaking, seeing, and hearing all of you. I can read auras. I can push energy anywhere in the world. I can talk to people in different dimensions, and it just seems to keep growing from there. And so it was very early. Like I said, it was only like 3 years ago this happened. So I haven't had my abilities very long, but they hit me, and I tell people it was like trying to drink from a fire hose.
Yeah.
When I found out about them.
All right, Julie, I'm jumping in. I'm cutting you off. I need to get to something right now.
Yes, sir.
You just blew my mind there, Tom. Now,
So-
wait a second. You can see into other dimensions?
I can hear people in other dimensions. I can speak to people in other dimensions. And I found this out because initially when I started feeling and talking to people, it was in my chest. And it was almost like an anxiety. And then I had one of my medium friends tell me, I need to get out of my chest because it could potentially hurt me because it's in my heart area. And it pushed it upwards. So I started feeling them in my head. Well, then something different happened. And I started hearing sounds just the same. But all of a sudden, the feeling went across my shoulders is where I was feeling them at. And I'm like, okay, this is different. Why is this different? And when I tried explaining it to my medium friends that I was with, they're like, we don't sense anybody else. And the lady I was speaking with in the other dimension said they can't because I am not of that dimension. You're hearing me and talking to me from another dimension. So it was very unique that I was able to do that. And I'm still able to do that. And it still feels the same across my chest. So any spirit or anything I talk to in this dimension is in my head, but other dimension it crosses my chest or into my shoulders.
How do you separate the difference? Okay, so we have head, we have chest.
Mm-hmm.
How do you separate the difference of something that is going on in the mind versus reality and the realism of you are actually doing this?
There's a different feeling. So I know what the voices in my head sound like. Prior military, you get that sixth sense. You kind of know what to expect and everything else. But when these start to happen, most of the times I can have other people validate it in one way, shape, or form. Like they will tell me something, and I'll be like, "Hey, this is happening." And like, "Well, how do you know that?" And I'm like, "Well, because they're talking to me and telling me this." And like, nobody knows that. And then normally when it's from the other dimensions, it is more messages than it is just simply talking. I want to say more specific messages like, hey, you are supposed to open. You are very shut down right now. You are not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And it almost is like a directive from other dimensions than it is from this one. This one is just people talking to me like it does for most mediums and stuff like that. But from other locations, other dimensions, they talk to me with more of a direct line. And it's very pinpoint about what they're trying to tell me. And when I bounce it off that other person or people, they're like, yeah, I've been wondering about that myself. Why are you getting this specific message? And the people from the other dimensions are literally trying to help me get the people here to open up or to do something, to learn something. It's almost like they're an interdimensional spirit guide in one way, shape, or form, but it's very specific for something, not just for something broad.
You know, a skeptic would say, and again, I believe you, but a skeptic would say, why you, number one, and then
I ask that question all the time.
What do interdimensional beings care about this dimension? I think we already messed it up.
Yeah.
But why? Well, is it because they care about mankind?
Well, so as we know, we're just energy, period. We're just energy.
Right.
We just happen to be in this form of our energy as it is now. And this is a learning spot for us before we move on to our next, whatever form of energy. Well, they are doing their damnedest to remind us that we are here for a very specific reason. And they're trying to help remind us of what that is. And they don't want to see us fail. They actually want us to see us succeed in this form. But we've been so blocked off, we've been so closed by so many different things that we're not opening up just with our spirit guides. We're not just opening up through mediumship. We're not opening up through something else. So they're basically, the only best way I can say is almost like a higher being or a higher power that says, I'm going to give you that other push that everything else isn't giving you. because you're supposed to be doing this correctly and you're not. I could show you how to do it, but this is a lesson you have to learn. So I can't do it for you.
And Joe, I have one more question before I have to get this out there too, is that how come these interdimensional beings don't go to the world leaders before they destroy everything? And I mean, I'm being serious about that.
Oh, I understand that. I understand that.
Because we're on the verge of like World War III. And why don't they communicate with them and say, hey, you have the power to destroy yourselves, but you need to listen to me? Isn't that more important than... Who
was the only couple of presidents in history that actually opened up and believed there were aliens? I mean, just literally would come out and say it out loud. And our most recent
Obama came forward and said something.
Well, he came forward and said something, but it wasn't to the extent of they're talking to me, they're doing this, they're doing that. That was Reagan.
Yeah.
That was Reagan. Reagan was our last one who did that. And then since he was an older gentleman at that point, they thought Nancy and Ronald were kind of becoming a nut. They kind of thought sometimes he was kind of losing it a little bit. And I think it's mostly because a lot of the presidents aren't open. Just most people just aren't open. We have a huge opening now, but if you look at the opening of people we have, they're all very young. Much of a younger generation. It's not an older generation like the generation I'm from. I'm actually surprised I was able to open it all. But the older generation, not as many people as needed to have grasped onto this. So they are trying to talk to leaders, elders, whatever, but they're just not open and they're just not hearing them. And it's not something they can forcefully push themselves into, because I probably should have been able to hear them long ago, but not until I opened was I able to start receiving these messages from the other dimension. So if they're not willing to open, or they just don't know how to open, or they're just afraid to open whatever it is, they're never going to get those messages that they're destroying our world.
I'm fascinated by this. Go ahead, Joel.
Now, do you think after COVID, a lot of people started opening up?
I do. I think a lot of people had more time to sit with themselves, which was very evident. And I think in their stillness, I don't know if it was out of sheer boredom or just whatever, but in their stillness, they opened. And it was almost like they needed that stillness, that separation from the busy life. Even if it was school or it was friends or it was work or whatever it was that they were constantly doing throughout life on a day-to-day process, and it was very repetitive. Once the stillness happened and they had to sit down with themselves, well, then I think more people started to open at that point, because what else was there to do except to face you? And when you faced you, it allowed you to open.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because that happened to me too. And I think that, everybody always says there's so much that you have to be taught in order to like really come into your gifts. And I don't know if I believe that. I just think that it's all a matter of when the right timing is for you.
Right.
Of course you can, have mentors and but I think it's just all about you and when you're ready.
I think some people can be taught, but that's because if they're looking into it, they're at that point to be ready. Because if they're not willing to be even looked at being taught, then they're not willing to open up. Everyone can learn it, but you have to hit at least a basic stage of understanding and acceptance to open up, to be taught something that you should have already been knowing.
Absolutely. Rosie said everything happens for a reason. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep.
Absolutely. 100%. I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah.
Everything does happen for a reason. Phil.
Yeah.
This guy has a lot of abilities. I mean, and I'm listening to him, and I throw some hard questions because that's what I would get asked, because I do believe him, and I do know that what he's saying is starting to like ring bells with my own personal life. And he has these abilities. And then we found out after COVID, a lot of people were, look at the world we live in, not even talking about the chaos, but All the stuff that is happening right now is just,
Right.
you don't even know what you're going to wake up to in the morning, quite frankly. If we're going to have flying dragons again, like, we don't even know what to expect anymore, you know.
Right.
And we're at that time, right? We're at that time when mankind is discovering things that this is a new forum for a lot of people, you know, and I think that there's a lot of element of surprises coming our way, and not all bad, but we're awakening now, right? We're awakening to that third eye.
And I appreciate the people who are willing to do the work for it. There's a lot of people who want the awakening to happen just because they think it should. They think they're entitled that awakening, or they don't want to put the work into it. Luckily, like I said, I fell into mine. I actually believe I was awakening for many, many years, but just didn't realize what I was doing. Because like I said, I spoke with you guys behind the scenes, and my audience knows this, but I'm prior military. And
well, thank you for your services.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But when I was in charge of a team, and I would always get what I would call a gut feeling. We all know what a gut feeling is. It's actually something that you're supposed to be listening to. And I would always get a gut feeling, and I just tell my team, "Hey, hunker down, hide, go hide somewhere," or what we call go cover. And they would cover. But the first couple of times it happened, sure enough, a patrol would walk by us that we weren't ready for, or something else. So the questions came to, how did you know this? I'm like, I don't know. I just have a gut feeling. Well, as it happened throughout the years, because I was in charge of the team for 8 years, as it continued to happen, they just stopped asking. If I said something, like, do it, because he knows something. And we don't know how he knows it, but he knows it. And so we just chalked it up to a gut feeling. And then we started realizing, and this is much later, and this is, my wife will tell you, much later, I was able to start saying things that were about to happen. Very small things, like, oh, by the way, because I'm a golfer, and hey, Rory McIlroy's about to dump this ball 20 feet in the water in front of him, but he's sitting right in the middle of the fairway. He should never do that. And the very next shot, he dumps the ball 20 feet into the water from the middle of the fairway and stuff like that. And she's like, "How did you know?" I go, "I just knew it. I just felt it. I just saw it happening." And she gets mad at me because she's a Nebraska Cornhusker fan, because we're from Nebraska. And if we're watching football, her team would be marching down. I'm like, "Don't go off sides." And the very next play, someone goes off sides. Or I'm like, "Don't throw an interception." And they'll throw an interception. She's like, "How did you know?" I go, "I don't know. I just saw it coming." So it's just that instinct, that gut feeling, that I think you have that little lapse that you can start to read sometimes.
And that helps you out in life, right? Making
the
right decisions about good people, bad people, what to stay away from. And then the communication and the interdimensional beings. Look, the part of the military came forward, actually. What's that guy's name? He came forward and says, they're out there. There are interdimensional beings. And whether you believe or you don't believe, this is real. And now whether mankind can accept the people that, you know, I think the problem is that because religion causes all the wars around the world, since the medieval times, that people may not be able to accept that we're not alone and that there's other beings in control of things.
And the religion kills me. So I talk about religion, but I do it very openly because I am born and raised a Pentecostal Christian in my family. My grandfather was a Pentecostal preacher, but I am very much of the belief that all of our religion has branched off to all these different religions from one main source, from one actual happening. And then man got involved and wanted the greed and the power to be in charge of the religions. And so made their own little sects, and it started breaking off into all these different side religions. And that's why we have so many differentiations between the two. But if you go back thousands of years and you start looking at the simplicities of how similar they are, it's amazing. Something I talk about on my show is if you look at the angels versus the dragons. So I am Native American Norse. I'm a very odd, strange mix of mythology. But when I talk to people about our angels, about Blue Angel, Archangel Michael, color blue, he's our warrior. Well, if you look at Norse mythology, and you look at Asian mythology, the blue dragon is their protector dragon. If you look at our green angel, it's the same thing as their green dragon. They're both the ones that are the healers and the ones, the ones that deal with the medicine side of the house or stuff like that. And they're two totally different sides of the world, but yet they still have the same beliefs. Just one has angels, one has dragons. So even way back when they believed in that type of stuff, they were still exactly the same. They just called them different things.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting.
Yeah. So
Nicole, is this your wife, Nicole?
That is my wife. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, hi.
Hi. She said he can read people really well and has been able to do that for years. I believe it.
True. So one of the things that we do is we'll go to, and I was kind of talking to you about this earlier, Julia, is that we go to some of the local like holistic fests, mystic fairs, stuff like that. And I really like to get the people who don't have a voice on my show, the local people who are fantastic at what they do, but they don't have a larger audience. And a lot of times I ask them to come on my show. So what I do is I actually walk around these shows and I feel their energy.
Wow.
And if I can pick up, if there's a positive energy coming out of them and I appreciate what they say and what they're doing and it's for good, then I will approach them and ask them to come on my show.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people I don't, because they're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Or they just don't. I don't want to. Sometimes they're just the people that are working. Like they don't know about the stones and everything they're selling, but they're just sellers. And I don't want to bring them on my show because they haven't had that experience of opening up yet. They're just working at a store. But the owners who say, well, this stone will help you with this, and this is the one I would recommend because this has a really strong resonation with you and everything else. Well, those are the people I look for. And I'm like, your energy is fantastic. I want to bring you on my show because you can help other people understand some information and it helps give them a guiding point as well. Mm-hmm. So, and my show is mostly, I would say 95% with people that no one has ever heard of outside of our local communities. But I believe they have a right to have a platform because they're spectacular.
Oh, I agree.
That's great.
Yeah. And, that's how we got started too. We've been doing radio for 5 years now.
Oh, okay.
And it's because we live in a haunted house. And the whole thing was to really understand what everyone else was going through out there and to learn. I mean, it's a learning. We're always left with more questions than answers, I believe.
Yep.
But this is how we learn too.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, my turn. I want to play host for a second. Is that all right?
Phil first.
Because all right, Phil, going to you.
Pick me.
So I'm actually going to ask you the same question I ask my audience or my guests when they come on my show. And it is, how did you get started and what brought you into what you're doing? What was your awakening? What was your aha moment type of thing?
Go ahead, Phil.
I'm going to get there. A demon.
Really?
Yeah. At a young age, through adolescence, I was followed by shadows. And, look, I'm Generation X. And, if you don't see it, you don't believe it, period. I'm from New York originally, and, you don't get scared off too quickly. But when something is unknown and you could see it and you can't explain it, and then as you get older, you can start to hear the voices from it.
Right.
You start to feel the oppression. That's exactly how I got started. And that was in my teens back in Staten Island, New York. I remember, I was brought to do the Ouija board, just joking around.
And that was your early teens, wasn't it? That was your early teens too, wasn't it? 13, 14?
Yeah. And I was messing around with the Ouija board with friends in my parents' basement. It's not real, all that stuff. You play that game with each other, and long and behold, well, here we go. So it's kind of like what I have learned is that the devil's doorway, look, anyone who knows the spirituality of whether ghosts or demons or anything exists, the answer is yes, but you don't know up until you actually go through certain things in your life. And they kind of open the door knowing what your weakness is. Right. My weakness was always being curious. wanting to know. And they know that because they're way ahead of us. And once they know that, it's like, we're going to open the door now. Keep asking questions through that little board that you call the Ouija board. Here we go. Right. And that's what started for me.
Yeah, that's not the first time I've heard that. And it's amazing that, Mattel puts out a Ouija board. I'm so shocked by that. For kids to try out and play it as a game. When that a lot of people, when you think of the demons and you think of the devils and you think of all that different things, you think they're so far away from us, because I'm going religion again, but they were cast into hell, so they're very far away from us. When in reality, they're just a word away. That's as close as they are. And just by you touching that Ouija board and opening it up and not, using it that way, that's exactly how close they are to you. And you unfortunately had to deal with that and actually live that for part of your life. So yeah, so it's good you got out of that. Like you were able to get past that and it didn't continue on with you.
Well, that's not true.
Well, yeah. So.
Well, he does still have that. He does still have that darkness with him, but he got past
no. I know,
but are you still going?
I'm black and white. I tell it the way it is.
Are you still playing?
No. I don't play the Ouija board. No, not at all. But you see, what happens is this: you do something with intent, right? A board is just made out of whatever it's made out of, cardboard or whatever, however they make it.
Whatever. Yeah,
it's a piece of garbage, right? But it's the intent that a person has, and that spirit realm knows what that thing is. So it's the intent behind it, right? Quite frankly, you can cut out the alphabet, turn a glass upside down, and put your fingers on it, and if you have a spirit there, it's going to move the glass through vibration. But you see now, what happened was one thing led to the next. So now that I was intrigued by the Ouija board, I started to believe the Ouija board was real with friends that were experiencing it with me. I was also being pulled into now take it to the next step of go buy a book in New York City in a place called Magical Child called Goetia, which is the book of the devil. And again, this is not Philip wanting to buy the book. This is that inner thing saying, hey, you need to get this too, because you'll be pretty good at reading passageways. And this is what happens. So it's kind of like they throw out this string and they reel you in like the fishing line, right? They pull you in. And now all of a sudden, now you're doing something else. And, we see that we're blindsided sometimes because you really don't know that you're actually going into that world of darkness.
Right.
And you were very young too, and you really didn't know what we all know now about these things. And
now, like right now, well, look, I say don't tamper with a Ouija board. Don't tamper with intention of negative things because you don't know. You don't know what's coming through. If you think it's ma, pa, or grandpa or whatever, you may be misleaded into that other thing that comes through and wants to destroy you. And that's exactly what happens. So don't touch it. Stay away from it. If you're curious, I don't even know what to say at that point. You got to be careful with intent.
You tell people, if you're curious, go talk to someone who's already experienced it and find out what their experience was.
Absolutely.
That way you're not dealing with it firsthand. You realize what you should not be doing. So yeah.
And I grew up in a haunted house. My parents were, they bought a house in Staten Island, New York, and I was about 2. And what happened was the man that actually built the house, he was a horrible man. He died in my parents' bedroom, and he would just like torment me and my sisters constantly. He was just, what they say is if you're a horrible man when you're alive, a horrible person, you're going to be a horrible spirit. He was trapped there, and it was awful. And then one day I had a dream. My grandfather actually came to me in my dream, who passed, and he was like, that man's never going to bother you again. And he never did. Never did. And what happened was he kind of like blocked me, I think. But not only was I blocked from that bad person in the house, I was blocked from everything.
Oh, so you were shut down. Yeah.
I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see loved ones that passed that, that were good. I couldn't see good or bad. So, and then growing up, it was just, it was just nothing. And then I would say about around COVID time. That's why I asked you that question. I started working as an independent contractor for a crisis center, and bingo. All of a sudden, I'm sitting there and I'm reading these people, and I'm like, oh, wait, what? And I'm like helping them, and I'm telling them things like, well, your mom is standing right behind you. My mom died. I'm like, they're like, how do you know that? I'm like, I don't know. I just know. And that's how it kind of started for me. And here I am, doing readings and working as a psychic medium and helping. I'm still working as, for a crisis center. So it's really weird how it happens, right?
Yeah. It's just a blink of an eye, and it happens very rapidly. Yeah.
And it was around COVID, around that time where this happened. And I was just.
I think the best thing with all of us that we all have in common here on the show tonight is that, well, we teach people what we know, right? And no one's an expert, period. Or there is no expert.
Absolutely not. Always in learning mode.
Of course. And what we know is what you should stay away from, and be careful with your intentions and curiosity, right? Because we don't know what world we all want to live, the lighter, brighter life and the happier life, and pass that on to other people. And, I find myself now that, we do live in a location that unfortunately is tainted, but at the same time, because we go through this, we can teach people do's and don'ts. Right. Sometimes it could be you, that it's psychosomatic and power of thought, manifesting things that you think exist. And other times it can be just what you might think it is too. It could be something that is malevolent, trying to go on your fears. So we've developed those skills to help people, and I'm proud of that. So look, everything happens for a reason, like, our reason is to help people, right? And say, hey, you should not do certain things because you may regret that, and there's no watch on the devil's hand. He'll get you at any time he wants.
Right. And then what happened in 2010, we bought this house. So now, then this was before, I started really opening up with my gifts. Obviously, it was 14 years ago. I had a 2-week-old son that I was so drawn to this house. I was so drawn to this house. And you have, that I always say, be very careful when you have that weird, that when you're drawn in that real, of course you're going to love your new house, but you got to be really careful. And it's the Horsefly Chronicles house. Phil, you want to take it from there? I just have to close that door.
Well, I'll take it from there. I'm going to go back to the guest because I want to ask him some more questions. But,
sure.
It's hard to believe sometimes if you're not in the field of paranormal, supernatural, and you just have a one-track mind of it's only a certain way, or you're an atheist and don't believe in anything. Sometimes I may say to people it's good not to believe, because believing makes it more real, and then you could actually manifest things that you don't want in your life. So you have to be careful with that fine line. The other thing is that, remember I said that fishing line that's casted out by the darker side? Well, we're living in that house. And again, I tell people for years, like, there's no such thing as ghosts and yada, 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 the whole rigmarole we heard. But, throughout the years, in this particular house, we had 52 paranormal teams from around the world. Top teams, psychics, mediums, remote viewers, priests to help, Wiccan, shaman, reverend, deacon. We've done it all. And I tell it the way it is as well. If people ask me today, well, is it gone? The answer is we tried. You see, sometimes in certain locations around the world, I'm not going to sugarcoat anybody and say that there's a magic wand that says spirit be gone. If you really think you have one, you need to go see a shrink. It doesn't work like that. We do not have power over certain things. And one of them is something that you don't even see. It only exists because it wants to exist in a certain area. And quite frankly, the amount of force that you put into it can retaliate to you and everybody else around you. So again, it's a learning curve, right? That certain things do exist. And we're here. We're all part of the, whether we're part of that experiment or we're in this learning curve of knowledge that we're trying to get out there, and we go through these things. So the testament of time, you're a military man, and
Yep.
look, again, not only my hat's off, because it takes a lot to do something, to be in that. You don't know what you're facing. And you sometimes you face the enemy at unprecedented times, depending on where you are. And then it's interesting because we had Dinner with a Ghost here years ago, which is like the people that travel the world, and they set up locations. So we had a lot of military people that were interested in this house to come to this event. These are big guys, and they're not afraid of anything because they fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. And at one point at the dinner table in the basement, right, there's like 20 people set up. They didn't believe anything. And then all of a sudden, that dark shadow that I talked about appeared and started choking one of their fiancés, and she couldn't breathe. And the guys, when we all got out of the house, right? We all got out, and he goes to me, I fight wars. I'm not afraid of man to fight any war around any part of the world, but I can't fight what I can't see.
Yes.
And he was right. He made a good point. And his point was, look, sometimes the enemy is invisible in a way where you don't know how to fight it.
Right.
And this is why we're here, right? This is what we learned, that these things do exist. And of course, we want the greater good for everybody. But we've learned through testaments of time, then we walk these walks, right? You walk the walk of you not knowing what you're going into in the military. And we walk the walks of a haunted house and locations that we don't know. We just don't know sometimes. So we have to be very careful and delicate. And most importantly, the intent of our thoughts, also understand that they can be read by the enemy.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we ran into something that was not so pretty at a location we investigated as well. And it was dark and immediate. So it was very easy to catch people off guard. So you really got to keep your head on a swivel. But regardless of how much you plan for it, you haven't planned enough if that's what it wants to do.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Joe.
It might be easier to obviously remove one nasty spirit. We all know that, right?
Right.
But when it comes to multiple, like where we are now, it's like they call it a train station. I mean, we have elementals. There's hundreds and hundreds of things here, and you can't get rid of them all. It's absolutely impossible. And so many people say to us, well, why can't you get rid of it? And I want to go back to Bill Bean and his childhood home. What did he say about his childhood home? They couldn't get rid of it. And this is, everybody, who Bill Bean is. I mean,
yeah.
Nobody could get rid of it. It's still there to this day. So that's really important for everybody to know too, that there are some locations that you just cannot clear. And
right.
I know it's very hard. It's very hard.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Is there switching back into host mode? Sorry. Is there one of you that has a tendency to that they're around more than the others?
Me.
Is it you?
Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah.
I'm up late at night in the kitchen, because I work late nights, and I see things that I can't explain. I think it's my eyes, right? That's the first thing. Like, am I going nuts here? What am I looking at? I don't even know what I'm looking at. I don't know what I'm looking at because I can't explain it. I see things crawling up the wall that don't even exist. And I'm like, well, I don't drink. I don't take drugs. I'm into health and fitness. I got a clear mind, clear thoughts. So what's going on here? But luckily, all those paranormal teams that were here were able to validate some of the things that we've talked about.
Right.
Again, you're not going to if you think you're going to get some of these things on video, you're not. Some things you're just not going to get because we're not there in technology yet to capture things that we can't even see it. Only it's visible when it wants to be visible. But what we have heard is voices from the other side, like you are able to communicate with the other side. Mm-hmm. You get those signs that, these things exist, and sometimes, they're doorways to when you go to a location. It's a doorway, it's a portal, it's a vortex, it's an open door that these things come and go.
Right.
I've had also skeptics I welcome here too, because I like to hear what skeptics think. I like a scientific, reasonable explanation, but you can't explain to me why a toy goes on and off by itself with no batteries in it.
Right.
And I got a problem with that.
Yeah, there's some things you're just like, nope, I don't care what science says. This isn't going to happen. Yeah, yep, that's a big one for me too. Yeah, science can't explain that away. So
and again,
I just want go ahead, quick.
Go ahead, get out there with the chat.
Okay, so Rosie said if you are a positive vibration because of excitement about the haunted house or paranormal, one, you more easily are acceptable to negative energy. That's true. That is true. It goes after, we're all lighthouses. And I want to go back to when I said we were all drawn to the house.
Right.
It's not just the house. I believe it's the whole neighborhood. But me and my kids and my husband, we're all gifted. So it kind of like picked us. And that happens a lot too. Be careful about that. Sometimes
and a lot of times it's because the house knows who can handle it, who can deal with it. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's kind of how a lot of the houses have worked is there's a reason people don't stay because they can't handle it. And that may even come down to just simply when people are walking through before they purchase it, the feeling is wrong.
I want to say with that one, you're absolutely right about that one. But with this house, this is a more like it's like a mind manipulating haunting. You don't see things. Things are not thrown. It's not a poltergeist. It's a mind manipulating haunting. And I do want to say that we've tried to move. We don't want, it's not healthy. It's very draining. I'm sure you can pick some things up. You can feel like the energy, and it's, and every single time we try to move, something happens. It goes after what? It goes after your finances, your car, anything it can do to stop you in your tracks, it will do, and it has for now, and it's the truth, for now almost 14 years. So,
and it's very interesting because I didn't say anything earlier, but since you brought it up, even watching you two, just in your settings, identify something very specific. If you look behind you, Julia, you have a dark corner that's behind you, and you have a dark setting. And Phil, you are sitting where you are almost in complete shadow by a very dark window, from what I can see. So it carries that mood, even when you're on camera.
It does. Yes. And he's usually in the basement, but we just had to switch today because of the kids, but it's actually dark down there too. And you're right about that. Yeah.
Are you picking up anybody, Tom, that is currently here behind one of us, like a person or?
See, and for me, ever since Julie and I started talking, that darker spot that's up above her, over in the corner, that just seems like where something's just just enthralled about what's the conversation is right now. But it's not. It's just sitting there, and it's just it's not engaging. It recognizes that it's being seen by me, probably by some of my audience as well. But it's just sitting there listening on what your take is on the house. And that just seems like what it's doing. It's like, oh, so this is how. And I know you have all talked about this before, because I can tell you talked about it before, because when you mention things, it's not like it goes. It kind of goes, yeah. Yeah, we've heard this before, yeah. But like I said, the setting was very interesting when you both came on. Like I said, Julia, you came on first, and I saw you, and you're in very good light, except for that one corner, and that one corner is where it's hanging out at. And then Phil, you came on, and you were in instant shadow. Your face has that shadow. See, Rosie just said that too. I can see a dark shadow. Wasn't sure if it was from the cabinet, but it moved too. Exactly. And that's what I saw. But when you were in darkness, where you're sitting at, Philip, I'm not watching you. I'm watching the surrounding darkness around you to see if anything moves. Because I'm not picking anything up around you, but I am picking up around Julia. And it seems to be what Rosie's picking up as well.
Yeah.
Now, I got to say this in all favor of Tom. I will say this. Before, like a minute before I logged on to get into the show tonight, there was this black shadow, like the size of a circle, that came from was on the floor, like rolling on the floor behind me. And then I logged into the show on StreamYard. And it's interesting that he's picking up the darkness because, look, it could travel me to her to me to her to whatever it does, you know. But he's right. More importantly, you're right. And I'll tell you why you're right. It's observing.
Yeah, it is.
And you wouldn't have known that, but we know that because we are living it, and we've had it validated all the years that this thing watches and it listens and it validates what you're saying, but it won't acknowledge.
Right.
But I'll tell you what. What I wouldn't do. Like if I was on this show and all of a sudden I start to light sage, I'd say a couple of prayers, this whole thing will go off. The whole StreamYard will go off. Everything starts to happen. So we learned. Here's what we learned: be careful. Don't try to provoke, because you don't know what you're provoking.
Right, and it's not an antagonistic being. It's just there. It's like you said. It's a mind manipulation. It's not a danger. It hasn't scratched you. It hasn't threatened the kids.
Wow.
Has it
not
done
tonight,
you?
but it did smack our kid in the face years ago.
Really?
My youngest, he's 14 now, almost 14. I think when he was like 5, he refused to sleep in his room. He was sleeping with us in his little spot in our room for years and years and years. And well, one day he got smacked in the face. It never happens again, because I went ballistic. But it did happen. We've had teams here that have gotten scratched, and
we were having a reality TV show filmed here years ago, and the film crew they didn't believe in ghosts. You know, they were just doing the filming, and they happened to be in the basement, and one of them says, "My neck is burning. The back of my neck is burning."
Yeah.
Look, I have the pictures. It's crazy. He has a hoof print. I can't explain it.
But they didn't belong there. You guys are the owners of the house. So you guys belong there. And I'm going to tell you my wife is picking up. She actually wrote that. She picks up on me when I amp up, when I start opening up and I start feeling things. She can actually detect me.
She shields you.
Yeah, she tries, and I don't let her, because I shield myself very well. That's another story. But I will tell you, the thing that slapped your son is not the same thing that is with you now. No, I know. The thing that slapped your son was actually put in his place by others that are in your house and said, "Don't touch these people." It was more of a reprimand to that thing for touching your son than it was that thing actually doing it. Is what I'm picking up. I'm picking up. It was no. They're here. They're dealing with us. We get to do with them what we want. They do with us what they think they want. We're copacetic right now. Yeah. Don't rock the boat, basically. So, and that's absolutely. So that's kind of how I see it when I'm watching the movement in your house. So.
Wow.
Yep.
I like that. It's a fun show. I actually enjoy doing this kind of show because we're getting his perspective and we're giving him ours, and I like it. It's like a mutual conversation, and at the end of the day, I say, you know what? Sometimes I say to myself, this is all fake and doesn't exist, right? Because I want to sleep at night, not with one eye open at 56 years old. And then the other part of me is like, did that thing just go on by itself?
Jean has a good question, Rosie, and I know we have to go, but Julie and Phil, do you have any pets? We had pets, and
they had.
They don't. It does not work.
They don't last. They decay quick.
Well, because they detect them so fast.
I will never have another animal in this house again. Never, ever.
They're
Never.
targets, and they go very quickly, unfortunately, and
It's very sad. So
Yeah.
it stinks.
wow. But this is interesting, very interesting. And you know what? I've learned something tonight. I learned that what he's saying, Joel, about he can communicate with interdimensional entities or beings or whatever.
Beings, yeah.
I find it very interesting that he's not the only one with these abilities that can do this, and it's coming more forward now in the mainstream. I seen Fox News the other day. Look, they're saying that the Vegas incident is real.
Right.
They had crime scene experts say, hey, no, what the police caught on video is real. But these things can be invisible at will.
Mm-hmm.
And if you tell anybody in the mainstream public or go to your corporate job, like, you're nuts. But look, you have crime experts saying they can make themselves invisible. This is what we're talking about. This is what we're talking about.
Hi, Bill.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Bill. So have y'all met Bill?
Yes.
Hi, Debbie.
She was on the show. We love Bill.
Bill's my lead. I'm actually the Paranormal Existence Research Society Midwest director. So he's my boss.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, we're the ones who run the five central state area in the Midwest.
Wow.
We're the head for that. So yeah.
Well, I mean, it's 9:01. We're gonna end up getting knocked off, but it's really fun.
But Tom, tell us where people can find you and all that good stuff, and what do you have going on?
So for mine, it's real simple. Everything is listed as Stuff I Never Learned. Facebook.com at Stuff I Never Learned, YouTube.com at Stuff I Never Learned, Twitch at Stuff I Never Learned. I keep it real simple. My Gmail, if you want to reach out to me, is stuffineverlearned@gmail.com. Currently, I'm traveling. Like I said, I'm down here in Florida right now. We have taken a small hiatus from investigating simply because my wife is going through chemo right now from cancer. So we have taken a small break. But we're on the backside of that, so that's really good. So we should be back out in the road, hopefully in a few months. But other than that, I'm just running back-to-back shows. I'm with you guys this week, and next week I have a local person on that's in our area, and her name's Kelly Miller, and she's fantastic, and
awesome.
And she's a good listen to. So yeah, so like I said, I really appreciate you guys working with me and doing a collaboration tonight, and it was and I really like the way it worked out. This is my second collaboration, and I look forward to doing more, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll open up to doing more as well. So
I like Tom's energy. I like what he's saying. I believe in him. And people share the show. This is a guy you can learn from as well. A lot of knowledge. And I can tell the way he speaks, he knows what he's talking about. And maybe we'll have a future show. So thank you so much, everybody. And back to our haunted lives. All right, Drew, wrap it up.
Special thank you to Carnation for fully sponsoring the show from day one. We love them. Thank you. Please join us next Monday night on the United Public Radio Network on 105.3 FM and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. Thank you, everyone. Have an amazing night. Thank you, everybody in chat, for joining us.